Hello, Bame Farm fans. It's June 16th, 2023. And, well, I guess it's been a little dry. I haven't, we baled that one bit of hay with the Case 730. And I thought that was maybe just a little thin because, it was a pasture and there was like 2 or 3 steers out there chewing on it, eating it down. No, that might not have helped, but all across the board, the couple of fields I've mowed so far today, it's been thin. Now this is actually a thicker section, but this is a very low-lying area. And an odd thing I've noticed, I don't know if it's because of the dryness, clover has really popped out in some fields this year. Maybe it's because of the dryness. I know alfalfa likes it a little dry compared to what we usually are. Well, today's taking an interesting twist. I need to be out baling hay, but after church, well, let's look in the mirror. Yep, ended up buying a hay wagon because it was close and it's trailing really good. We're doing 40 and it's not walking. So we're gonna load it up here in about an hour, see what it does. Well, we made it. Baler and 3 wagons. And I'm excited to see how many we can cram on this. The guy who sold it to me thought they almost had 300 on it at one time. That's gonna be one giant stack, and it was probably straw. Like probably 8 high, which isn't gonna fit through town very well. 12 high is 12 feet. They're not. 7 high is 12 feet tall. And this deck's a little higher as it is. Love the extendable tongue. It's got a spring so we can be super lazy. Tires are in pretty good shape. Greasable hubs. That's always a good sign. I don't know why that was a thing for manufacturers not to make them, greasable. And those are probably, farm add-ons, those grease zerks. That's an oak bed. Not exactly my favorite design, having the runners and whatnot, but, it's functional, it's gonna hold hay, and it trails wonderfully. These 3, actually, all 3 of them trail really good. Don't know if I'll pull all 3 loaded. And you don't know when you're going as slow on the tractor. So enough talking, we gotta get to work. Well, we're getting started going here. It's a little slow because the hay is a little thin. It is a nice long 20-foot walk. It's not quite a track meet. We're not pumping them out that quick, but it's a good run every time. Getting a good little workout, It's pleasant. So far, so good. I extended out the hitch on the baler to put the wagon a little farther back, just away from the chute. Because sometimes, I can lift the chute up some, but it was close. If you're getting a little bit of a dip and things are moving, it was a little close for my comfort. It's a little different. We're bound with the 66, never bound with the 66 before. With these new tires this year. We've baled the 66 many times in years past. It's got a great low gear selection. Like the whole low range is slow. Well, we're about to test how this thing corners. Because we're in a good tight corner. Yeah, I know, I mowed it like this. I'm not saying it was my brightest idea of the day. Take a look-see underneath. We are probably hitting the stops, but we're empty, so we can do that. It's the only thing about a longer wagon, it takes a little bit more to turn it. Whew. I didn't measure how wide this wagon is, but it's a good 8 foot wide. So I'm not having any trouble getting 3 bales long across the deck. This felt like a lot more when I mowed it. Oh, because 7 foot's so small. And it took me a hot minute. You know, just mowing. The odd shape, it always feels like you're turning. It shouldn't matter though, because I mow in circles. But the mower is always mowing. It's not like there's moments where it's not mowing, you know? Like I'm not turning around, nothing like that. And you can tell hay in these bales came out of the shade. It's not quite as super bone dry as everything else. But I'd say it's only possible because it's been so dry. If you remember how cloudy it was when I mowed. Isn't this fun, just spinning around on my head? Racing back and forth. Yeah, get my cardio in. So yeah, I'd say so far, the little bit I've baled, it's been a little thin. It hasn't mattered how many times it was mowed last year. Like there's a section up front, closer to the road, that was just being bush hogged. That I didn't mow last year. It was only bush hogged. So yeah, it was cut taller. So anything that was mowed short, like for hay, this isn't seeming to have grown back very well. And some of this is even in wetter spots, like right here. It was probably sitting in water at some point this winter. And I know that over there, as it gets wet enough to be rutted up when it's bush hogged at the wrong time. So I discovered the ruts over there because I was cutting out the good stuff for squares, and I gotta come back and round bale the not pretty stuff at a later date. Well, things are trying their best to go wrong. I guess that's what I get for trying to bale hay on a Sunday. So I'm using the baler to straighten itself. This was a little bent. Adam, you think that's straight?
It looks straighter than what it did.
Oh, yeah, I know. Trying to guess like what's straight, what's not. Not to bend it too much. Yeah, so this is only a small bit of the problem right now. I just got done straightening out something else. And I don't know what we ate to make it unhappy. It's not going to be factory straight. I've already replaced this once because the welds down at this end had given out. And we tried to patch it, but just it kept falling out and getting eaten by the plunger. So I finally had to get a new one the last time it fell out. It's pretty straight for the month of June. So, yeah, that came out of place. I just straightened these back, and this is now a Bluetooth item. All parts of the claw. And we may have to limp through really slow if we can get this back together and working. I'm trying to get it out of there. Alright. Is it being... Okay. That's out of the way. Now we can get this back in. Oh, somewhere way in the darkness is its little resting spot. Okay, well, I guess that's in there. Just got a carriage bolt or two for this end. You need the spring apart. Well, that's sitting there, I guess. What do we need? Keep going. A little more. A little more. Oh, oops.
What?
Our string. But that's enough. You can let it go. I forgot to take our string off. But that's now. The chain is back on. We're getting somewhere. We still got to put these rods back in. But we think we got things straightened. Almost going back together. They haven't smashed too many fingers yet.
Tension that chain.
Well, it's a few days later. Minor detail. We finished baling that Sunday. Finally ended up getting done about dark. That didn't... We made it. It wasn't the greatest. Didn't want to be out there that late. Glad I didn't cut much. Sort of glad the yield was low, but not really. Like, obviously not. Don't want low hay yields, but if there was more hay to deal with baling, would have been out there even longer. Oh, I did not know that. So on the back side, I thought this piece was maybe cast into these claws, and it's actually like a special little metal tab. Yes, I've already replaced one of the claws, and I've replaced the spikes before. And it's probably a bad sign when you call the dealer and like, oh yeah, we got a dozen of those. Like, it must be a common thing for these to break. They're cast aluminum. I'm sure this is more of a forged aluminum. And I think they're aluminum because if something goes haywire, they fall out of place, break, and get into the bale chamber, that the aluminum is soft enough that it's not really going to destroy the knife. You might shear the bolt, and you'll probably cut through the aluminum, but the mess won't be entirely catastrophic. However, this was pretty close. The chain had jumped off. So now I know to keep that sucker, to turn a phrase I've heard on the internet, tighter than a frog's butthole. I don't know much about frogs, nor their anatomy. But it must be tight. Because you gotta... I already did some bolt loosening. You missed out on that, so you gotta take these spikes out too. But the play... This is I guess is the weak point of this baler that I am not wild about, but it's here. Is that play. And I got the chain super tight. So invariably, like, I don't know how else to adjust it. You can see, that's a rub. That one quit rubbing because the hay has polished that one, but that's the more recent rub. That probably happened in our little disaster there when this thing was being a drama queen. Plus it's bent. I've straightened them and rebent them. I don't know how many times it can be straightened and rebent. So that'll be fun to take to the recycling center with our aluminum cans. Oh, I'll put these spikes on first. Gotta line up all our non-painted parts. And we've just through hay season, not that it's been very long, you know, get done planting early for me, and that went well. Got a little bit of rain to make things come up, and now it's just a struggle between weather to get hay made. Let's see if I can guess. That looks pretty centered on the paint. Ooh, are these thicker? Are they not sliding together like they should? Because that bolt seems short. Uh-oh. Who's not reaching? Oh, you're not sitting straight over there. And I hope these tighten up a bunch. Now these are aftermarkets. These aren't New Holland spikes or claws or whatever we want to call them. Only about 30 bucks a piece. And in the realm of parts, I guess that's not terribly horrendous. Those are all tightened down. Time to put in the spikes. Those just slide up in there. And of course they're not going to stay, but we'll do this one so we can see it. Just make it so it barely pops its head out of the top. And then we tighten it down. Did pretty good for straightening these in the field the other day. Thanks to using the bar down there on the bottom. That's another thing that annoys me. Watch this. There's just a pocket down there in the darkness that it slides into. The other end's bolted, but it's not, you know, the tight fit I would hope for. Somehow I guess this is less moving parts, or somehow more economical than the setup on, say, a 570 or 575. They've got big turning claws inside here instead of this arm and chain contraption. So I guess somehow this, you know, is cheaper to do it this way, because the 565, you know, was the economy baler at the time. This must not be the worst design, because they made you know, people, if they wanted a low-cost baler, this is what New Holland offered. And that was, they started making this machine in 1989, and they made it in up to like 2008, I believe. So they didn't change too much. And it wasn't a bad, it must not have been the worst design. They didn't change it. So I don't know what that means. I'll probably tighten that chain some more, because I'm not happy about how close this is. A lot of brightness down low. That's how much play there is. I don't know if that shows off how close we are. I'll try to run a cycle through here in a second and watch it with the camera. Okay, I'm going to try to crank it through for you, and we'll see how much we see. Now this is in reverse, because there's a little bit of hay in the chamber slowing me down. Then we can run it forward once. That's recording. That's 90 degrees. Now reading, I didn't hear anything scratching. Now back here, up on the cover, yes, right there on the cover describes timing of the claw. With crank at 90 degrees, the top of bale chamber. So I'm assuming that means the crank for the plunger. Pivot point of the bar must fall between timing marks. So timing marks look like they're just inside that big sprocket. There's the big sprocket, and the timing marks, I don't know what the timing marks are. I'm unsure of that. We figured we were possibly not one link, but 2 links. Like, we have the chain, there's an even number of sprockets, or an even number of teeth on the sprocket, so they wear based on the links of the chain. Like, see how shiny that is? That's because that's what I'd call an inside link, and this is an outside link right here. But there's an even number of sprockets, so we'd have to move. We wouldn't be off 1 tooth, we would be off 2 teeth. And potentially, based on how well I can interpret these timing marks, the pivot point right here looks like it could possibly be closer to the sprocket. But we were making okay bales, and everything, like, we timed it based on having, you know, the plunger was all the way in, and then we timed the bar here to be all the way out, which would be at some point on this sprocket, and all the way up the ramp there, or the guide, whatever you want to call that. I'm sure that play doesn't help the tightness. So I guess this is back together, and I need to go adjust the tension. Because we can also see in this position, like, it doesn't rub down on, there's a wood block, a wear block. The chain doesn't rub. So it's how much of that can we take out? I don't think we can. The best we did was so it wasn't touching. Just the weight of the bar is going to cause that much flex. So I cheated, and before I pressed the button on the camera, I loosened those 2 bolts that hold the slider here for adjustment. If we look real close, you can kind of see how much this has moved since being brand new. That's how much the chain is stretched. And we're pretty tight, but to be extra tight, I'm going to give it another half turn because I'm here and we can. Now you can really feel as I pull down, like it's acting like it's tight. So we'll back off just a hair, and then we're going to get some spray chain lube and lube that as best as we can. It's a real death trap to try to oil with the machine running. That's why I use spray chain lube, and I can do it stationary and not worry about losing a hand for the sake of lube. Here we are, and here's my can of spray chain lube. Trying to get some on it. It's a real challenge. Spraying it everywhere. Everything's just going to be well lubed. And I just got out the good book, the owner's manual, that tells you how to do all the important stuff. And instead of boring you with all my wrench turning, I went ahead and did it, and I'll explain it now. So the crank, this is the crank, it's supposed to be at 90 degrees, and very faintly, you probably can't see them on camera, somebody took a punch at the factory and made 2 little divots in the frame to make sure, if you can't see what, you know, fully vertical is, that you can align it between those marks. Now, other things that are supposed to line up, timing-wise, is if you can see those 2 lines, those are supposed to be within a 1/4 inch of each other. Let's just say, originally, the line on this gear was right there, and it was a little bit outside of a 1/4 inch. This time's the needles, and this had the needles entering the chamber, I believe, slightly late. And everybody thinks that the needles go into the chamber without the plunger. No, the plunger is all the way back, or pretty close to all the way back when the needles come up. That's because if the needles were coming up when the plunger was all the way forward, the needles could be going up into hay, which isn't good. That's how you get bales stuck together. So I timed that, and you time that through this shaft, and I did that by moving this chain. That is a tensioning bolt. for an idler right there that has a big 15/16 nut. And I loosened that all the way up, and it turned out I had to move it 2 lengths, take the chain around in that direction, I guess counterclockwise, 2 lengths. And that should make the needles enter a slight bit earlier. Now, that could be said that don't fix what's not broken. So I'm gonna be a little annoyed if I go out to bale. I've got maybe 100 bales worth of hay on the ground for this week in the glorious not sunniness. So I'm trying to make progress any way I can. And hopefully it doesn't get rained on. I don't know. It's all over the place. I'm just trying to keep things moving. Now back here in the darkness, remember when I said I was guessing about where the timing marks were on that chart? Well, the book said there was 2 holes, and there they are. And this piece, the pivot and this connector link back here, are supposed to be between these 2 holes. I have it set a little early because the adjustment of one more link over on this other side of the baler moved, well, changed that timing so it was late. And you change the timing right here. The feeder forks drive off, you know, let's say the long drive shaft here. And I ended up moving this 2 rollers around that sprocket. And I just did that by taking all the tension off that idler. And I can't put it into words for you guys, say which way is clockwise and what's retarding timing or what's advancing timing, other than there was a little bit of guess and check, and I think I ended up just guessing correctly both times. So now everything is in time by the book, and hopefully I didn't break too much thinking I was fixing it, doing things correctly. Time will tell, and probably a day or 2 when we try to bale this small little patch. Well, we made 382 bales that day. Guess not bad. And so, if you watched that long, congratulations, you now know that number. And we're going to go ahead and wrap this video up. And I don't know if I'd call it a fun farming adventure, but it was more adventure than I had planned on.